We have a serious problem, friends. Earth's magnetic field is weakening, and it couldn't be happening at a worse time. We're going to be talking about what's been going on over the last several years, and sometimes we see these freight trains coming right at us, and because it's taking a little bit of time, we don't realize how serious of an implication of what is about to happen. Because the simple fact is that the Earth's shield is weakening at the same time that the sun is spitting out more and more dangerous solar storms. We're going to talk about what's going on out there, give you a heads up on what could happen and what we're facing in the near future. Let's jump into it. Welcome to the Poplar Report. I'm Steve Poplar. I'm an accountant by trade, and I keep my eye on what's going on out there, and there's some great channels out there talking about these problems, what's going on with the sun as we go into a solar maximum. We have an 11-year period of time where the sun goes through a cycle where it spits out more and more stuff during the maximum, and it gets very, very quiet during the minimum, right? Now, this happens every 11 years, but the last several that we've had have been pretty weak, but this one does not seem to be following that trend. It seems to be much, much stronger, and it is spitting a lot of garbage at us, and we're seeing Earth's magnetic field, for various reasons, weakening significantly. So we may see some storms and some effects here on Earth that we haven't seen in hundreds of years. We got a lot to talk about. Let's get into it. All right, so extreme solar blasts of a solar maximum and a weakened magnetic field together is not a good combination. It's a deadly combination. So what's going on with our Earth's magnetic field, right? So as you know, the Earth is like a giant magnet, and we got the North Pole and the South Pole, right, of the magnet. Now the problem is the North Pole isn't staying where it should. It's been kind of wandering. Now, for a bit, it was kind of wandering back and forth a little bit, and that's kind of how it was going. It was just kind of moving around. But recently, it has started moving at a fast clip towards Canada. Over the last several years, we're seeing the North Pole moving towards Canada, south towards Canada, at about 40 kilometers per year. Now, that may not seem like a whole lot, but here's the thing. All the archaeologists and all the scientists out there will tell us that a polar flip, when the North Pole moves to the South Pole, well, where the South Pole used to be, and the South Pole moves to where the North Pole used to be. This flipping of the Earth's magnetic spectrum, supposedly, according to the scientists who believe that the Earth is billions and billions of years old, believes that this happens over thousands and thousands of years. There's lots of evidence inside lava beds and all sorts of stuff like that where they can see that the magnetic field flipped over time. Now, like I said, these people who believe that the Earth is billions and billions of years old, if you kind of disagree with that assessment right there, like I do, due to the Bible and such. Now, I'm not saying that if you don't think the Earth is relatively young, that this doesn't hold any weight. I'm just saying that if you believe the Earth is young, this holds even more weight because we see evidence that the poles have flipped before. Now, whether that was just apparent age that God created and that hasn't happened since humanity has walk the face of the earth, well then, okay. But it does open the possibility that over the last thousands of years, possibly the pole has flipped. And it may indicate that the pole could flip relatively quickly. And if that happens over the course of several years, the problem is when the poles flip, the magnetic field kind of evaporates, as best we can tell. It turns into just this chaos. It's not a strong field protecting our planet until the poles restabilize in inverted fashion. So if we're moving into this period, which humanity may or may not have experienced before, I I don't know. There's lots of different ways of looking at this. Is this basically how God is going to do the whole apocalypse? Possibly. If you believe that the planet is around for, billions and billions of years, still there are scientists who believe in the billions and billions of years who have evidence inside the magnetic records of rocks and everything like that to show that sometimes the polar flip happens over the course of a decade or so. That's problematic, friends, because if we're looking at our magnetic field that's protecting us from all the protons that come off of the sun during a CME, when the sun spits out a solar storm towards us, it's mostly charged protons that hit the atmosphere, and when they hit the atmosphere, they release X-rays, which is bad. You don't want to get lots and lots of X-rays. This is what happens on the surface of Mars because it doesn't have a protective atmosphere and a protective magnetic field, right? And so we see this as a problem, and you see lots and lots more radiation up at the North Pole and the South Pole. It's a much more of a problem because if you've seen the field, it comes out of the bottom and comes in the top. And so this protons can come in on the top and come in on the bottom, which is why you have the northern lights and the equivalent southern lights, where the protons and the interact with the atmosphere, particularly lower in the atmosphere up north. And when the magnetic field gets very weak or the storm is very strong, we see the northern lights much further south, which we've seen that just recently, haven't we? Where the northern lights were seen down in Florida. The lowest, furthest south that we've seen the solar lights, the northern lights, in many a lifetime. Strange things are happening today that should have people concerned. So every 11 years we have this solar maximum, which is when we really need our protective magnetic field. And we're seeing that we're kind of not having it. Over the last 100 years, so this is a little bit old information, but over the last 100 years, up till like 2014, something like that, we lost about 6% of our magnetic field over the last 100 years, okay? It is now projected that over the last decade, we've lost another 5%. That's not small chump change. Remember, the Carrington event happened when we had like 11% or more of our magnetic field, right? Now, of course, that's not how percentages work, but don't correct my math on that. We're talking generally speaking here, okay? Because you and I don't actually know the numbers of how strong our magnetic field is around Earth, unless you do. And if you do, that's probably your job, okay? But my point is that the Carrington event that burned up telegraph wires happened when the Earth's magnetic field was significantly stronger than it is today. It would take less of a solar event than the Carrington event to do the same amount of damage or more. That should be concerning. And the fact that our magnetic field is continuing to degrade, and that the degradation of our magnetic field around Earth is rapidly declining, and it's declining faster and faster, should be a concern to us all. So what does this mean? What does this mean? What this means is, as we go into the solar maximum over the next year, we're going to be more vulnerable to a Carrington-type event, to more radiation coming from the sun. And here's another thing that, the people that wanted to ban all the Freon and stuff like that, which was a total con job by DuPont. Anyway, when the protons get further down into the atmosphere, you know what they do? They destroy ozone. When were we talking about that? 20-ish years ago? Between 30 and 20 years ago? Yeah, about 2 solar cycles ago, where the solar storms were coming down to the atmosphere and destroying the ozone. Yeah. It wasn't the stuff in your refrigerator. It wasn't your stuff in your spray aerosol cans, friends. That was just because the patent was expiring on that, and they didn't want you buying, making your own, okay? They wanted you buying their new patented stuff, which they happened to roll out just as they had all these activists screaming about Freon. It's truly something to see when you see corporations playing politics like that just to make a few $1 billion. Anyway, so we have this happening. What does this mean? First off, we are going to be much more susceptible to a Carrington-type event, a CME that actually overwhelms the Earth's magnetic field and actually penetrates further into the atmosphere. Think northern lights much further south, right? That may become a regular occurrence over the next year. And the northern lights are an indication of what's going on, but it's not a direct correlation to what's happening. What we really need to worry about is a major surge of electromagnetic force from the sun that can effectively act like an EMP. However, this does actually go around the planet. There's been a lot of people talking about that recently, about how when a solar storm hits the Earth, it doesn't just charge the one side of the atmosphere, it charges the entire atmosphere. And so it can actually wipe out electronics all around the world in all different directions. And so this is something that we need to be considering too, that we may not be safe just because we're on the far side of the sun when it hits. We need to be putting electronics in protection, and you need to be thinking about that. And if you need to just learn the basics, a piece of cloth wrapped around the electronics, something non-conductive, right? Aluminum foil, make sure it's fully wrapped up and make sure that there are no gaps. Cloth, non-conductive, and then aluminum foil again. And you can basically aluminum foil around a box and then put a box within a box. Make sure that the aluminum foil of the different layers doesn't connect to each other, because then it just defeats the whole point. You need to have good insulation between the layers so that charges don't move directly from one layer to the next. This gives your electronics a lot more protection. More layers are better than having a very good layer. Now, a lot of people will do that. They'll be like, let's just put it in the trash can. Well, one, make sure you're not touching the trash can's walls, right? The electronics, if they're touching the trash can's walls, that does you absolutely no good. Well, it might help a little bit, but not good. You need insulation between the electronics and the shield around it. In addition, and air is one of the best insulators out there, right? But then having multiple layers that don't touch each other is a good thing to do. Also, be aware that when these storms happen, we may be exposed to a lot more radiation. It's not like nuclear radiation, but we are talking about the sun. You might want to be out of the sun. You might want to have sunscreen on. You might want to cover up a little more, right? During these events and during the next year, you might want to pay attention to how much you're being affected by the sun. Has anyone else noticed how the sun and sunlight has been affecting you a little bit differently than what it has in the past? A little easier to burn, a little easier to get a little too much. It seems like it's getting stronger, and the reason for that is Earth's magnetic field is weaker, and we are getting exposed to more radiation. Now, it's not to say don't get out in the sun. You should get out in the sun. Just be aware that it's going to be stronger and more potent over the time, and that might also be what's partially affecting some of our plants. They're getting affected by getting hit with more radiation that is actually damaging them. So think about that too. Whether to give plants a little bit of shade might actually be helpful. Now you need to go research those things yourself. You need to be thinking those things through yourself. I'm just spitting some ideas out at you. But this is a very real problem, and it's particularly going to be a real problem over the next year. Then we may get a reprieve over the next decade or so, but if the Earth's magnetic field continues to degrade, about 12 years from now, we might have a very, very serious problem. All right, friends, let me know what you guys think down in the comments down below, or if you know of channels that go into this more in depth and have better information for you, more complete information. Please do you can pop channel links down in the comment section, but if you try putting a link to like outside of YouTube, they don't let you do that. They just delete your comments. I don't delete them, they delete them, right? All right, friends, thanks so much for watching. If you want to check out another video from this channel, there's one right up here. I'll see you over there, or I'll see you guys later. Steve Poplar of the Poplar Report out.